Hey, we're here and we're chatting with Zsofia Baranyai, and she has a book called The Last Offering. She's a fantasy writer, and in the past 4 years, Sophia has written 18 books so far, with many more in the process. Writing became a passion for her during the quarantine in 2020 because she always loved to read fantasy novels, especially, and her first real book was born when she couldn't find a specific story that she wanted to read. So she said, I have the capabilities, I have the imagination, I will do it myself. So we will find out about Sophia, her books, her passions, her writing process, and so much more. So, Sophia, glad to be speaking with you.
Really nice to meet you, Robert, too. Thank you very much for inviting me today.
Thank you for being here. And so I did my best to tell people about you and what I know about you, but you tell me what makes you stand out, what makes you unique, what has you so excited these days?
Well, I was very excited to be here today because this is a first-hand experience for me. As you said, well, I already completed 18 books and I just can't wait for the time I can publish all of them. But right now I'm publishing The Last Offering, which is a fantasy novel, but I try to take real life problems in a fantasy calc to try to guide younger generations how to solve their own struggles, but not so dry as it would be like in a psychology book or in a book to build yourself up, but within a fantasy world where they can experience and adopt their feelings and the persons who are there. And I just couldn't wait to introduce all these characters to everyone.
Very nice. I think that's a cool idea that we all have our own emotional problems, our own struggles, but then to just tackle it head on directly to read a boring psychology book, who wants that? Versus to let your brain take a break and to jump into fiction and say, well, hey, these other characters, they go on amazing adventures. And then you think sometimes like, well, what would such and such character do, right? What would Novak do? What would the vampire prince do in this situation to give yourself a little bit of confidence? Or you see, well, my little problems with if I'm stressed about school or grades or work, they go on these fantastic adventures fighting dragons. It's a different perspective, and it's a lot more of a fun way of going through life and pursuing hobbies. Definitely a lot better than scrolling the social media or watching the TV, right? Read a book. And so tell us about, you say you have these 18 books. Is the last offering like the crown jewel, or like what's the top book out of what you've written?
I think I haven't written yet the top one because I think I can always improve more. Lately, I started to try putting more real life struggles into the books. So the Holy Grail might still be in process. But right now, I found The Last Offering as one of the top ones because in the meantime, it's funny, it's humorous, but the characters doesn't become themselves. Sorry, they don't become their own caricatures, but they are still funny. And while they are trying to solve real life problems, they live in a magical world where one kingdom is filled with humans afraid of monsters, and the other kingdom is filled with monsters in truth with humans. And each of the kingdom thinks the other is the bad. So, what's the reality here, and who is the real bad guy in the story? Is it our external enemies the problem, or our internal battles?
That's a
And
cool
this
concept. And you mentioned something about your like your own self-expression. So do you like at what extent do you express your own, like are the characters written, are they like people you know? When you put in like the conflict, the drama, do you work some of your own internal external struggles in that?
There might be some, but I think that these characters are just living inside me in their own little world, and I just couldn't wait to show for our world them. And they let me to introduce them through these pages. So it's not like that it's my personal experience, but whenever I write about them, I feel like I am them. That a specific character. Either it should be Ultima or Asir or Novak, as you said. The sometimes I take some of the inspiration about people I know. Novak's character is one of them because I think he's a fantastic father figure. He is a partner in crime in the meantime, but he can be very wise and compassionate when it's needed. And he resembles a lot my own father. And I think that's the father figure we are all looking for or want to look up at. So I just took him as an inspiration for Novak. With his silliness, with his teasing towards Esir, but at the same time, he's supporting their love, he's supporting their own struggles separately, like someone you can lean to, someone you can trust while the waves of the life just crashes over your head.
Very cool. And I like that idea, and I can relate to that, where you have some of these imaginary characters living in your head, and you know them, and you say, well, what would they do in this or that situation? And then you can just drop them into a plot and see where it goes and have fun. And you even, I imagine, surprise yourself. Like sometimes we have an idea, like you're taking a walk, taking a shower, and you're like, hey, like maybe there could be this battle or this conversation, this scene, and then you go and you write it down, and it goes in unexpected places, right? The outcome is different than what you expect. And so I'm curious about your writing skill and how much it's changed, because we said that during the pandemic you started writing, you have these 18 books, and would you say that book number 18 is written differently or faster or a different approach than book number 1 or 2?
Uh, Getting back to what you said, yeah, many times the ideas come to me while I'm walking or just listening to some music. And the most stressful stuff is when I have no time to write it down immediately because I just can't wait to get to the point when I can finally put it on page. And they sometimes surprise me and I get in a creative stop because it's like, that's not what I was planning. What did you do? So they are basically alive and sometimes just crossing my plans, making my life a little bit more complicated. But yeah, the writing style definitely changed because the first book I wrote was just pure fantasy with the a little bit of a cliche topics that everyone was looking for in that time, like revenge and just like you are coming from a horrible place, abusive place, and you just step out and you go on adventures, but without real internal battles, just what the circumstances prepared. And nowadays, I try to focus on more with the help of a friend of mine who's a psychologist to check real life struggles and just put them a little bit different perspective without, as I said, making it dry. But what I'm aiming for is that when someone reads the book, apart from enjoying it and having some time to relax and escape from reality, in the meantime, they can just stop and think about, wow, I'm feeling similar. So, what would I do in her case? Or would this solution work for me? Okay, obviously, the solutions in this book, please don't put it in reality because that might be a problem later for you. But I mean, for the emotional part, for because as I said,
Well,
it's a
great. And
fantasy book, so some of the ideas are not put in real life, please, because that would be a problem.
sure. And so it seems like it's you think about like what we can learn about your writing process and what like up and comer or new or other writers can learn, and it seems like when maybe those first couple books were are maybe like more of the cliche or the easy plot lines, but then it seems like as your writing muscle has strengthened, then you can go for the more uniqueness and the kind of when you put out a plot line that's something new. That's really cool because we say, well, hey, there's all these, vampire, monster, fantasy books, but this is like in that range, but it's like something I haven't seen before, and that gets my attention better. And then it also seems like you're saying that when there's like a slightly new plot line, people can maybe fill in the blanks a little bit better, right? And they can kind of like relate to it because if you're reading the same old vampire story for the 14th time, then like your brain isn't working as hard as it is when there's something kind of brand new and connecting. And so like as far as what you have planned for the future. Like you say, you've written 18 books. Why wait until now to start publishing them? And what's the sort of release schedule?
Well, most of the books are available in a pay to read online platform page, but they didn't get as much attention as I wanted at the beginning. And then I just started to write for my readers who were coming back to me and supporting me all the time. For those 1,000 people who did, or 2,000, here I am saying thank you for being with me through these 4 years and just always coming back to my page, reading them. I tried to publish other books before, but unfortunately they failed. But now that I found would-be publisher, I thought that we're gonna do great together. And actually, this whole idea to publish this book came to me last August when I meant to meet a friend in like a bookshop and a coffee shop together. And while I was waiting for her, I just picked a random fantasy book and I started to read. And while reading, I realized that I can write better than this, or very similar. And I just looked around, and the bookshelf were filled with fantasy books. And I was like, why mine is not here yet? So while I was waiting for my friend, those 12 minutes changed my life because I searched for publishers, I found Woodbridge, and I sent a message. I would like to get more information. And that's how the story began. And that's how I am here today.
Very cool. And I have done the same thing. I've sometimes gone into a bookstore and I just like you see some random book, you pick it up and you say, "Okay, what's so great about this?" Because like if a book is you recognize the author or the title or it's even gotten as far as like being have all this distribution, I'm like, well, what's the big deal? And sometimes I flip through and I look at like the table of contents, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and I'm like, it's not that groundbreaking, right? Obviously, not everyone can do it, but it's like it is attainable if we kind of put the work in and do these things like come up with good ideas and do the writing and do the revising and have and also you mentioned a lot about other people, right? About building your community. You've mentioned about getting inspiration from real people. You've mentioned about finding the publisher to help you out, and I think that's really helpful and valuable. That it's really tempting with writing to just it for it to be a solitary activity, right? Where you write down and you just kind of stay alone with your ideas and your thoughts. So can you tell me about that? Are you naturally a social person or do you make a deliberate effort to involve other people in your writing?
I'm more on the introverted side, or rather said ambivert, but I do like to involve all those friends into the writing process who are my biggest fans. I also have a little dedication in the end of the book for the three of them because those three friends read a lot of my books and they were continuously nagging me for more chapters. Uh, my best friend during COVID, she did that I fall asleep around 4 a.m. because I was writing all night. And at 8 o'clock, she already called me that where are the more chapters? I want more. So I'm talking with them because they give me power to continue when I struggle to how to do it or if I'm a little bit down. They just help me out with their own passion and with their own excitement because I see that what I'm doing is interesting and valuable for someone who is important for me. And I hope that this audience will just only grow from now. And I love to interact with everyone. So if there's an interaction part for the platforms anywhere, just please feel free because I love to hear your ideas. I love to hear what you think about the book, what you would have done differently, because all this stuff can give me ideas for new books also, or maybe for a new one with these characters, if you all gonna like it, because I still have a few book ideas with these characters in my mind, depending on the success rate of this one, of The Last Offering.
That's a great insight that there's never enough time to implement all the ideas. And so you probably have like your internal mental list of like, well, the all of these could be the next book, but then there's also the weighing it against what people liked and about what was the most popular. So that way, perhaps you can find a merging of like, okay, well, I could write about these like 36 different possible books, but then out of what I already put out, like this one and this character and kind of this plot line and these ideas, this is what was really good. So then, cool, we'll merge that, right? We'll merge what I like with what they like, and then everybody wins and everyone's happy. So it seems like you have this support system of people encouraging you, and I think it's very underrated. It's very easy for social media, especially, to be a spectator sport. You just open the app and you read some things. But if there's some author out there, they would really love to hear about your encouragement, right? It's easy to just click the like button or whatever, but like reply to them and tell them that you like such and such book. And if it's a huge if it's a J.K. Rowling or Stephen King, they probably won't even see your tweet. But if it's someone who's more up and comer on the mid level, that's someone who will actually interact with you. So why wouldn't you give them your attention, because they will actually give it back, as opposed to someone who's already sold millions of copies, already made billions of dollars? Talk to a real author who is out there who can help you. And so encouragement is very important to get us through. But have you ever really struggled? Have you been to the point where you like stopped for weeks or weren't sure how to complete a book? Have you ever just been really stuck at some point?
Yes, I've been when my own personal life got in a low point. So that moments were a little bit complicated to write, but or continue to writing the same book. That's when I sometimes just a new idea sparks in my mind, like new characters who want to get to the surface. So usually I stop with one book and I write the other one. Right now I'm writing four at the same time, and I try to write whichever I have idea for to go on with something and not just getting stuck in the moment, because I'm trying to go ahead and not get stuck. Even if it's not the same book or not the same characters, but if I have idea for one, I'm just writing those. And if I have an idea for another one, well, I continue that one until whole of them gets finished.
Okay. So forward momentum. And I've heard that before. I talked to an author one time that said something like, it's important to just do something every day. And even if you're stuck, then work on the cover one day, work on the formatting. And so that way you don't have any of these empty days. And you hear about these authors like Ernest Hemingway, who would write like 500 words a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but added up over many days, that's how you crank out all the books. And so do you have any sort of a routine or discipline in order to keep this writing habit going?
Not really, to be honest, because there are days when I have right now a job that I have to take care of, and I usually end up working late. Therefore, I don't have all the days the time to do it, but whenever I can, I just come to my room, I put some music on, and I just write down my ideas while they are fresh in my mind. Or if I have an idea during work, I just quickly make a note, like what with a few words what I want to happen. And so when I have time, I go back to those notes, I read it over again, and it just comes back to me like a movie. So I can just write it down at that moment when I really have time, because I don't like to rush it. I like to give the respect and the time for writing, so I just can concentrate on doing that. So it's gonna be wonderful, or I can portray the ideas I have in my mind exactly how they are, or just giving some hits for the readers, because I don't really like to build a word that's leaf by leaf written down. I prefer that there are a little bit of a gasp, so everyone can feel it with their own ideas, how it looks a room, how a kingdom looks like, who a character looks like. So I give the specific details of the main characters, but the rest is to your own imagination, so everyone can read the same book yet have a different experience about it.
That's an interesting idea, and it's always so good advice to write down those ideas. I read something recently that ideas only last for 45 seconds, but our minds play tricks on us, and I guess maybe you can like renew an idea, but it seems like a lot is left to chance. If you say, I was in the middle of the workday and it was 3 p.m. and I had this idea. I'll remember it later, but then you don't, and you might even forget that you had the idea in the first place. So that's good advice. Just write it down. And so that way, when you have the longer lengths of time later to take your time and really get the scene right, then you can go back to it. And it might even be better that way, right? Because you said that you write it down when you're in a hurry, but then maybe your subconscious was developing it, and then you can connect later the quick idea written down versus what your mind then developed later on. And we only have a few minutes left to chat here, but you mentioned something there about writing a scene, and I think that's really helpful, just like writing advice in general, because sometimes you hear about like that's a tricky concept of like too much detail, not enough detail, and sometimes some writer might put in like the wrong details, and then when it's kind of said later on, it like your imagination's messed up. Like I read some book once where some character had a Scottish accent, a really thick accent, but then you didn't know until the final chapter, until all these words are spoken. It's like, oh no, why did you tell me that later? So, do you have any pet peeves for writing or any advice as far as just the common mistakes you see happening frequently?
Not really, but what I tend to do, I'm trying to write a dynamic storytelling. So in every chapter, there is something you can be excited or emotional, happy or sad about. So you can find your favorite scenes in each chapter. That's why it's difficult for me to choose one if I had to, because in every chapter there is just a little conversation or just a scenery I wrote down that I love and it's dear to my heart, not just because I wrote it, but because it's their world. So it's their reality of these characters of Ultima, Asir, and Novak. It's their own reality. So what I try to do is I give, as I told you, some specifics like how the color of the room, the type of the furniture, more or less, or the smell of the flowers, the color of the sky, but I put more effort and I also put more importance into how they feel, how they act, and how they react to everything that happens around them. Because in the end, that's what makes my characters alive. And the friend of mine who keeps reading it and giving me advices, she told me that they feel so real because of these human reactions and because of these real feelings and real life problems that it makes her feel while she reads that they almost step off of the pages of the book and they become real person who can she love and be happy for them, be excited for them, and be sad with them if it's necessary. And that's what
What
I
are
was
my
aiming for.
characters feeling and how they react? That's great.
Yeah.
And so, in our last few minutes here, I want to make sure that we cover the bases and then we talk about what interests you. So, in our last few minutes here, is there a missing hidden question that I should be asking you that I just don't know to ask you?
I think maybe just of maybe my favorite character in this book or why he
Okay,
is
who's your favorite
favorite.
character?
It's a side character, but it's Asir Prince's father Novak. I told you before while we were chatting that I portrayed it more or less like my father, or I took some characteristics of my father, of his personality into this. But I just love that even in a very serious situation, he's a little bit goofy, he's a little bit silly. He eases the tension of the situation, even with his inner thoughts, or he's kicking like on the bed like a teenage girl when he's excited, or he just waltz into the room and out, teasing and annoying the hell out of his son. But when life gets tough and he needs to be there, he is there like a serious, determined, wise father figure. And I love him. And hopefully, once The Last Offering becomes successful and people start to interact with me and wanting more, I would love to tell his backstory about how he got there where he is, and maybe even in the future more about what happens with Asir and Ultima after the end of this book.
Very cool. A spin-off, as they say, right? Starts off as
Yeah,
a side character and then has all of their own backstory and their own side characters. So it just evolves over time. And so tell us about the last offering, how we can find it, how we can find you, social media. You said there's a pay to read site. What are some next steps here?
Well, you can find the book on Amazon soon. It's also going to be sold in Kindle version, Barnes and Nobles, in a few different bookstores through England and Ireland as well. And I have a personal website that was created. It's author ZSYB, like my name. You can see here the starting letters. And so there you can get all the information regarding this book. You can have a little bit sneak peek about me as well and how we got here.
Author zsjb.com. Reviews, blogs, all this information about the book. And then when it is live on those platforms such as Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc., then you'll be able to click and go there. And this is Zsofia Baranyai. So that first name is Zsofia and last name is Baranyai. So author zsjb.com to check out the last offering and these other books. An ancient agreement requires that a sacrificed girl be delivered to the monsters in order to keep the peace in a planet where humans and monsters are united by a tenuous truce. And as you said before we started recording, Sophia, we don't want to provide the spoilers. We want to give people just enough to get excited and go and check out the book. So along those lines, do you have any final push for someone to check out the website, check out the book? What would get someone intrigued, interested, excited to read some of this?
Well, I think that would be the first line of the book, which describes perfectly the whole concept. And that's it. The darker life gets, the brighter you shine.
That is inspiring and that's helpful. And as you said at the beginning, that you get these lessons put in a book in fiction form when your brain is maybe it doesn't have its defenses up, and that can help you and it can be enjoyable. And then you tell Sophia how much you enjoyed her book and everybody wins. So when there's that darkness around and you shine brighter, then that's just a way to get through life and a way to get through this existence. But life is too short to wonder about, oh, I should have read that book, or I should have checked out what Sophia had there. So check out author zsjb.com to find out about soon these 18 books and so many more that she's delivered during the pandemic. I hope that you had fun hearing about Sophia's journey, writing process, the book itself. So author zsjb.com. And then do we have any social media to drop, Sophia?
They are in progress, but right now I think everything will be posted on the website page.
Okay, fair enough. That is the hub. Author zsjb.com. Go there now. Check out the last offering by Zsofia Baranyai. You'll love it, and we'll see you very soon. And bye for now, Sophia.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.